How can I get more low end out of my kick drum? Now, there are a lot of videos out there talking about this, and the reason I made mine was because I wanted to take some of the best tips I've heard and some things I figured out and put all those into one video, and also address a couple of things that could be happening that could be keeping you from getting a lot of low end out of your kick, and you might not even realize it. I didn't realize it until recently. So first off, we're assuming that we're working with a 20, 22, 24 inch kick. If you've got a really small one, well, that's definitely going to be a different kind of sound, and it's not going to be a big thunderous bottom kind of kick. But if you've got a normal standard size kick, regardless of what the wood type is, you should be able to get a good amount of low end out of it with some good heads on it. There's sort of that general rule with drum tuning where we tune the top head to feel, we tune the bottom head to pitch. Now that can somewhat apply with the kick drum, because we want that batter head to feel right when we play it. We want to be able to bury the beater into it if we're playing a rock groove and not have any of that flutter when the beater hits the head. And so we want to have that tuned fairly low, but I've noticed with my kick drum, I like to have that resonant head tuned even lower so that it really provides the majority of the low end for the kick drum. So I've got the batter head tuned just high enough to give a little bit of pitch to it and some tone to it, and then I've got that resonant head tuned extra low to really provide those subsonic frequencies. Also be careful with what kind of muffling you're doing. If you're doing too much muffling, say you're doing the dryer full of laundry method, that's going to give you a really dead kick sound, which is cool if that's what you're going for, but that's also going to suck away a little bit of that perceptible low end. The less muffling you've got in there, the more of that low end you're actually going to hear, because the more freely those heads are going to be able to vibrate. My favorite muffling method is just a hospital pillow inside the drum. I find that that absorbs just enough of the extra ringing to really create a nice, low, punchy kick sound without muffling it so much that it's dead and then it loses low end. I've got another video coming up where I'll go more in depth about specifically kick drum muffling. For now, I'm just going to sum that up with don't over muffle it. It's probably going to sound better with just a little bit of stuff in there, just a pillow, a folded towel, something like that. So if we take a look at this kick drum right here, for instance, we can see that the hospital pillow in there is smack up against the resonant head, which means we're going to have a lot of reduced low frequencies because we're getting those low frequencies from the resonant head here. So if this head isn't able to vibrate, we're not going to get a whole lot of low end. Here's what that sounds like. But now if we take the time to move that pillow back in the drum so that it's more up against the batter head and it's not at all touching the resonant head, we're going to have a lot more low end. You can see it right there, how it's not actually making contact with the resonant head. So there's a lot of space for this to vibrate, this to resonate, which we have tuned pretty low. So that's going to give us a lot more low end. Here's what that sounds like. Now, something else interesting that I learned recently, and this came about because a lot of times on a gig, I'll put a kick mic inside the drum. I'll just set it on top of that hospital pillow and I'll have the cable running out the porthole in the head. Now, something that didn't occur to me until I saw a video about this was that when you've got that XLR cable hanging out of the head and laying on the porthole of the resonant head, that's actually killing some of those vibrations, and that resonant head isn't able to vibrate freely because it's got the weight of the XLR cable hanging out of it. And so in this video, Bob Gatzen was talking about this, and he's like, so I came up with this method for getting around this, and he just clips the XLR cable to the hoop of the drum so that the cable's going up and out of the porthole instead of hanging out of it, killing those vibrations. So I thought, wow, that's really smart. That never occurred to me, and that could be why I wasn't getting as much low end out of my kick. So here's a demonstration of what Bob Gatzen does in his video, which I'll include a link to in the description. He's got a mic inside his kick, just like I do here. A lot of times we end up micing the kick this way just because it's a little bit simpler. Maybe we don't always have a stand on hand. So the problem we end up with is that the XLR cable is draping out of the porthole and it's making contact with the resonant head right here. I'll include a high quality audio sample comparison here in a second so you can hear how that's actually more muffled than that. So what Bob does in his video is he takes a clip, just like this right here, and he clips it onto the cable, snag onto it, and lift it up to right here, clip onto the hoop of the drum. So it's still making contact right here, so we'll kind of adjust it, pull at it, there we go. So now gravity is no longer pulling the XLR cable down, causing it to muffle the edge of the porthole. It's not making contact with the head anywhere. So that works pretty well, and so now we've actually got extra resonance, creating more low end there on the resonant head. I also thought, well, here's an even easier way to do this if you don't have a clip handy, but you've got that kind of kick drum that you mount the tom rods into. I know this is only certain kick drums that you can do this with, unless you want to like drill a hole into the shell of your kick drum. You can actually fit an XLR cable down through the hole made for the tube that's used to mount the drums. And this is probably something that's more common on a lot of low-end kits, which mine happens to be here. But you can run that XLR cable down, plug that into the mic, and you've just got the cable running straight out of the drum, nothing even remotely making contact with that resonant head, and so you can get some maximum low-end frequencies there. Lastly, something else to consider is that when you're tuning your drums, if possible, avoid tuning them in a small room. Now, I'm not an acoustical physicist, so I'm not going to try to go into scientific details here, but a room has to be a certain size to support a certain low frequency. And the lower that frequency goes, the bigger the room needs to be to actually support those sound waves, because the wavelength is so long for a really low frequency. One time I struggled with really getting a lot of low end out of my kick as I was tuning it here in the living room at my apartment. And I was really frustrated by it, and I remember complaining to one of the band members when we were setting up for the show that night, man, I really wish I could get more low end out of this kick. It's really bothering me. And so I put my pedal onto it. I've got it set up on the stage in this big room with big ceilings, and I hit it once and it's like, whoa, that thing's got low end, it's got power, and the mic isn't even on it yet. There's no microphones up here. I'm just hearing this kick drum on its own ring out in this big room. And that's when it occurred to me, wow, you can get so much more low end out of a drum when the room is big enough to support that low end. So don't spend too much time getting frustrated tuning your drums if you're tuning them in a small room, because that low end that you think you're not getting really is there. You've just got to be in a room big enough to actually hear it. A lot of times in a big room, your drums will actually sound much lower, deeper, and thunderous than you thought they were. So that's also something to be aware of. If you don't want your drums to all sound deep and thunderous, you might actually want to tune them a little bit higher if you're tuning them in a small room. That way when you get them into the big room, you're not caught off guard by the boom, boom, like deep bottom kind of tom sounds that you're getting. So those are just some things I've learned about getting low end out of a kick drum, especially if you play a kick drum like mine that's not a super expensive, really nice shell. You're working pretty hard to get as much great sound and tone out of it as possible without just buying a really great drum shell. I hope this has helped you out. If it has, please leave me a comment. Tell me what you've done to get more low end out of your kick. Tell me if you've heard of any of these ideas, or if you've got some new ideas of your own. I'm always eager to hear those things and keep learning. So leave a comment, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, share with somebody else, and don't forget to check out some of these other videos on my channel before you go. Thanks everybody for watching. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out these other videos and click the headshot to subscribe. New drumming tips, techniques, ideas, and product reviews every week.